Hi everybody, I'd like to welcome you to week 2 on this very, very cold January day. The way you see me now, all bundled up, is basically how I am between January and the end of March. Yeah, I hate the cold. I don't know how you guys feel about it. But anyway, we still have good things in store even if the weather is horrible. So last week I really enjoyed getting to know each of you in the introductory discussion. I hope you enjoyed getting to know each other and that you were able to really get a feel for some of the other people in class. Although it's unlikely that you'll get to know everybody else in the class the same way that you would in a face-to-face, my hope is that maybe 2 or 3 people will really stick out to you and that you'll get to know at least 2 or 3 other people in the class as the semester goes on, and any more than that would be great as well. So last week I really set the stage through the lesson and the reading for what public relations and strategic communication is, a little bit about the history, and how we're going to define public relations moving forward. So I really emphasized the idea of building relationships and mutually beneficial relationships at that, and how communication is really all about conveying the organization's goals to internal and external publics. And so really, we're taking the position in this class that public relations and strategic communication is no longer this one-way push of information from the organization to the stakeholders, although certainly that's still part of an overall communication plan, but rather there are other elements of the plan that come together to build these relationships, so to build trust and hopefully social capital between organizations and stakeholders, and also now in a social era between stakeholders and other stakeholders, so that ideally we have these kind of communities going, communities of interest. So that's still an ideal. Certainly that doesn't come to pass in every organization or every organizational stakeholder relationship, but now that we have the tools that allow us to share and build relationships such as online media, my hope is that eventually we'll see the field really reach that goal of building relationships. So anyway, we're building on that idea this week by looking a little bit more about how public relations and strategic communication is quote-unquote done. So how do we do public relations? If you were to go get a job in the PR industry, what would you do on a day-to-day basis? So I tried to point that out in 2 different ways this week. So we look at different types of public relations, so corporate, nonprofit, and government, and then some other subspecialties. And then we also look at what are the tasks associated. And I kind of try to clear up a little bit like the differences among what is public relations, what is marketing, and some of advertising, social media, and how they all fit together. And so you're reading by Scott this week. This is the first reading from your textbook. It's a really, I think his reads are really easy but meaningful. So even though they're interesting and you can get through them quickly, they pack a lot of information for you. So he talks primarily about the difference between old and new PR. And so I ask you to expand upon that in your discussion for this week. And then there's also an activity called the State of the Field activity, where I ask you, you can work alone or with one partner, to research 4 public relations firms, make a PowerPoint presentation talking a little bit about each firm, maybe 1 slide about each firm, and then based on your research, kind of creating an overall statement about the field. So how big are firms? What are their specialties? What do these firms say they do on a day-to-day basis? Or what do they say they do for their clients? And how do they present themselves? And so hopefully by the end of this week, you'll get a really good feel for at least a portion of what you could do when you graduate with your corporate communication degree. And again, even though this course is about public relations, a lot of the principles still stand for corporate communication. Corporate communication, as I pointed out last week, is a field where you can really define it for yourself when you go on a job interview. So corporate communications can be public relations. It can include advertising. It can include marketing. Basically, we treat it in this major as an overall umbrella of what you can do in terms of communicating organizational goals to stakeholders. And so certainly the tasks and specialties that we cover this week are all part of it. So as always, if you have any questions, I encourage you to reach out to me via email. Stop by my office hours this week. On Tuesday they have to change a little bit because I have a faculty meeting from 12:20 to 1:20 during common break. So I'll be there an hour early, so I'll be there from 11 to 12:20, and then again from like 1:25 to 2:30. And then I also have office hours from 9 to 12 on Wednesday. And if you are not located on the Abington campus, we can certainly set up time to Skype. So have a great week, stay warm, and I will see you online.